Harry's Invictus games might not make it to their next chapter, and this time the crack is not coming from an online petition. It is coming from the money. Sponsors are reportedly heading for the exits, and the whisper making the rounds today is that Birmingham 2027 could be the last one standing. But that is only the opening item, because today also delivers a matching pair of stories that put an actual price tag on the whole comeback. A rugby star extending an olive branch after months of side-eye, George turning 13 in proper style, and Fergie's all household picking up a fresh true-crime headache it did not ask for. Welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. Let's get down to it. So let's start with Invictus, because of the one piece of Harry's public life that even his critics sometimes concede was genuinely his, might be running out of runway. On the Express' own Daily Espresso podcast, commentator Mark Dolan was walking through Harry's recent turn on James Corden's After Hours World Cup special when he dropped the real headline almost as a throwaway line. In Dolan's telling, Harry has already lost control of Centebelly, the African charity he co-founded back in 2006, and journalist Paula Froelich is now separately reporting that Invictus itself is losing sponsors, headline backer Boyne among them. So, Dolan's verdict, in effect, this could be the last Invictus, and the whole project could go up in smoke. So treat that exactly for what it is. One commentator relaying a second-hand claim on a podcast, not a confirmed statement from Boeing, so weigh it accordingly. But the timing does the claim no favors whatsoever, because 12 days ago, Harry stood in front of cameras the 1 year to go event and called the countdown to Birmingham the beginning of something, framing the return of the games to the country where they started 13 years after London 2014, as incredibly special for everyone involved, a chance to showcase what sport can do for rehabilitation and recovery. And Boyne itself signed a multi-year commitment to the Invictus Games Foundation back in February 2024, with a company vice president talking at the time about being honored to keep celebrating the unconquerable spirit of every competitor and every family behind them, a commitment the company said ran through this year. So if that commitment is quietly lapsing now, incredibly special is not the phrase anyone at Invictus wants attached to 2027. So here's the pattern worth sitting with for a second. Centebelly, the African charity Harry co-founded almost 2 decades ago, unraveled earlier this year, and Harry lost control of it entirely. So the petition demanding his removal from any formal Invictus role has been climbing for, some time, sitting well past 6,000 signatures the last time anyone counted. And now, allegedly, the foundation's own headline sponsor is heading for the door too, with Boyne's name specifically attached to that rumor. So the gingerbread has spent a decade building Invictus into the one project even some skeptics considered was earned rather than borrowed or stolen. The rare cause nobody accused of being a branding exercise until now. Because if the sponsors are actually walking, that is not just one bad news cycle. That is the foundation of the entire operation cracking from underneath, and no flag handover ceremony in Dijon changes that math. So a charity in trouble, a petition still climbing, and now a sponsor rumor all landing inside the same few weeks is not a coincidence anyone should wave away with a single podcast caveat. But speaking of the math, Because today, two separate outlets independently landed on the exact same explanation for why Harry and Meghan suddenly want back into the family photo. Raiders exclusive this morning frames it bluntly. The reunion with the king was driven less by nostalgia than by the fear of going broke. So sources describe the sausages waking up to the reality that their biggest asset was never the Netflix deals or the podcast circuit. It was a royal connection itself. Yeah, breaking news. And that the commercial opportunities that once arrived easily are no longer showing up the way they used to. So one line from the piece stood out above the rest. The couple wants back into the royal family because at the bottom they fear their lifestyle might go bankrupt. So, a few hours earlier, on a separate podcast, royal biographer Robert Jobson had already reached the identical conclusion from a completely different angle. Jobson argued that Charles has been blinded by a father's love and by his own cancer diagnosis, and that Harry, in effect, needs the money, needs the brand, and needs the exposure, so he is sucking up to his father all over again. So he added that the king needs to remember he is not only pa or grandpa anymore, he is the steward of the crown for William, and that quietly letting Harry creep back into the fold is not what the public in this country actually wants. So both men are describing the same closed-door meeting at Highgrove, the one that finally let Charles spend time with Archie and Lily for the first time in 4 years. And both are pinning a financial motive when a visit to the palace itself has only ever called a private family occasion. So neither claim arrives with a receipt attached. Both are single source and both deserve the same grain of salt you would give any unnamed insider with an axe to grind. But when two outlets that rarely agree on anything land on the identical financial explanation on the same morning, that stops being a coincidence and starts being a pattern. For 6 years, the official sausage squad line was that Montecito Manor was thriving, and the exit from royal life was liberation, full stop, no regrets. But today the working theory from two directions at once is that the phone stopped ringing and the palace door suddenly started looking like the more reliable business plan. Half in, half out was never really about missing family dinners. Increasingly, it looks like it was about missing the paycheck that came attached to the title, and Methane knows better than anyone how much that title used to be worth on a press release. It is still worth on a press release. So from the record to something almost sweet, because not every story out of Britain today was a knife aimed at the Harkles. Mike Tyndall extended Harry the closest thing to an olive branch this feud has produced in months. Because back in May, at the Hay Festival, Tyndall took a public jab at his cousin-in-law, telling the crowd he knew Harry back when he was fun. Back, past tense. A line widely taken at the time as a dig at everything royal life has apparently cost him, delivered the same night that he joked about Andrew. So this week, the Instagram account for Tyndall's Rugby podcast reposted a clip of Harry's appearance on the Joe Marler show, where Harry named Tyndall's co-host, James Haskell, as the most famous contact in his phone, calling him a good-looking guy who makes rugby worth watching. Of course, that was scripted. I made a video about that. And Haskell, visibly thrilled by the royal shout-out, posted his own reply crediting the Duke and joking that it put him 1-0 up in his running feud with Marler. So, it is a small gesture, a repost and a joke, nothing close to a reconciliation tour. But Given how publicly Tyndall needled him back in May, choosing to amplify Harry this week instead of quietly ignoring him plays as a genuine thaw. So whatever is actually happening between the two men away from the cameras, let's see. Because the two families go back further than most people remember. The Tyndalls were guests at Harry and Meghan's 2018 wedding. They showed up for the Centre Valley concert 2 years before that, and Harry is godfather to their middle daughter, Lena, now 8. And that closeness has visibly cooled since the move to California, to the point that a 2023 visit to Santa Barbara, 30 minutes from Montecito, produced no confirmed meeting at all between two men who once shared a table at the late Queen's 19th birthday lunch. So if this is the first crack in that ice, it is a very small one. But it is the only headline all week where somebody from Harry's old circle chose to be kind about him instead of using him for content. Because speaking of family, because the best royal story of the entire day had nothing to do with the Harkles at all. George turned 13 today, and Kensington Palace marked it exactly the way you would want a royal household to mark it. The Waleses released a new portrait this morning. George relaxed and grinning, hands in his pockets, tie loosened, taking in the days after trooping the color last month. A few hours later came an 18-second video, George on a Cornwall beach during the Easter break, playing cricket, scrambling up the rocks, his dogs, Orla and Otto, trailing behind him with a cameo from his younger brother Louis. The caption simply thanked everyone for the birthday wishes. It is the kind of low-key, well-produced moment the Waleses do better than almost anyone else in the family, and it lands at a generally significant turning point. George starts boarding at Eton in September, following his father's own path there, and people close to the family describe him as a quieter, more self-conscious teenager than William was at the same age. Someone drawn to conservation and music rather than the spotlight, tall enough now that he's reportedly close to his mother's height. The palace is treating the move as a generally big deal for the future king, and for once, that framing is not spin. It is simply accurate. A second in line to the throne, trading a small local school for one of the most scrutinized institutions in the country in a matter of weeks. So there's no scandal buried in this one, no mask slip, no unnamed insider working an angle. It is a family photographing a milestone, plainly, and a kid about to start the biggest school year of his life so far. So sometimes, the best royal content really is the boring kind, and George earned every bit of today's attention on its own terms. And finally, over at the York household, because Sarah Ferguson cannot seem to outrun her own history, no matter how quietly she tries to live now. Disney Plus announced this week that its new true crime series, Britain's Most Notorious Crime Investigations, premieres a week from Thursday, and a full episode belongs to Fergie's old household. The episode, titled The Duchess and the Killer, revisits Jane Andrews, who spent years as Sarah Ferguson's dresser and trusted aide before she was convicted in 2001 of murdering her fiancé, businessman Thomas Cressman. What the F? Andrews accompanied Ferguson on official tours and engagements throughout the 90s before her fall from palace insider to convicted killer became one of the most sensational stories ever attached to the York name. One voice in the trailer asks bluntly how troubled the York household must have been if its own staff were killing people, which is not a subtle pitch for a streaming platform to be making. So, Ferguson, who is 66 right now, has kept a notably low profile since leaving Royal Lodge earlier this year. Her current living arrangements are still unclear to outlets that used to track her every move. A strange quiet for a woman who spent decades being the loudest royal in any room. So the series arrives as one of 6 true crime cases across its run, the other 5 having nothing to do with the family at all, which makes the York household's inclusion feel less like history and more like a selling point for the streamer. So none of this is new information. The Andrews case has been public record for over 2 decades. It is an old case getting a glossy new wrapper. Time to land while the York name is already unsettled by Andrews' own headlines. But that is exactly the problem with being a York these days. The scandals never actually finish. They wait patiently for a streaming platform to rediscover them and sell them back to the public with a trailer attached. So here's today's through line. Everywhere you looked, the Harkles story came with a price tag slapped to it. Sponsors quietly walking, a family reunion recast by 2 different outlets as a bailout plan, and even the one generally nice gesture of the day starting from a place of needing the goodwill back. Meanwhile, the actual best royal story today came from a 13-year-old on a Cornwall beach with his little brother, and it did not need a single unnamed source to work. I doubt the Boyne story is finished, and I very much doubt Fergie has heard the last of Jane Andrews either. But let me know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue. Much love and bliss.